Welcome to episode 156 of Fresh Air at 5. In this episode, you're going to hear me talk about some AI stuff, some relational stuff, things like that. And I'm ending off the week with a Teach Happier episode, The Delight in the Detour. So I'm calling this episode for episode 156 of Fresh Air at 5. Without further ado, what just happened? So that's the title. All right, so here we go. Episode 156 of Fresh Air at 5.
I'm Matthew Woods, host of Leading Out of the Woods, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwe First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Hey PLN, January 30th, 2024, out for Fresh Air at 5 this morning. It is Tuesday, and it has been a real full weekend of report card writing and marking assignments and doing stuff that has piled up at school. But we're on the other side of it. Got my middle school students today, and I'll get to talk to them about artificial intelligence a bit more in class and about chatbots and what we can do with them and how we feel about that. All right, this morning as I'm walking, I listened to Season 3, Episode 41 of Seeing to Lead with Dr. Chris Jones. And he brings us a Seeing to Lead short, which is a quick snippet where he brings us a thought and something that we can take and try and do maybe in our space. So today's episode is called Two Questions and a Challenge. Hang on, I gotta go get it, actually. But anyhow, I'm gonna carry on. But it's he's talking about empathy and problem solving and how when we have people in our lives that are struggling and people around us that are struggling, we need to be empathetic, and we also need to support them through their struggle by helping and being a problem-solving person with them. He talks about asking the empathetic questions twice, or saying being empathetic in two statements and then asking a question where we empathize with them, we hear them, we tell them, yes, what you're going through is challenging. It is hard. And then they reply with, yeah, it is so hard. And you're like, wow, I don't know how you're going to solve this problem that you're in. And then, they're like, yeah, that's true. And then you say, how can I be here to help and support you as we walk through this struggle that you're having? And that's, look at it maybe from an admin lens down, or maybe a teacher to a student, or maybe a friend that you have that is going through some stuff. But how can we say those two things and then ask a question? All right, take a listen. He does a better job than I. Thanks, bye. One more thing for January 30th, 2024. I just listened to episode 87 of Evolving with Gratitude with Lainey Rowell, and she brings us someone that I have connected with through the Twitter and not ever been close to physically in the world, has been Mandy Froelich, and she is a speaker and a self-care consultant and works with people to raise them up and make a difference in their lives so they can go on. And one day I was looking for George Couros and wondering, where in the world is George Couros? Because kind of like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, that game we used to play? And I was just wondering. And I typed in George Couros, and I found out that he was speaking at a conference on the Eastern Seaboard. And I was just scrolling, and I saw a session through that conference, and I was just like, wow, it'd be really cool. There was an invitation that went out from Mandy on Twitter, said, she come to my session, and I look forward to seeing you. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to come. And she's like, well, why don't you come? And I said, well, because I'm on the West Coast and up in Canada. And it was just fun to be able to connect that way. I've listened to Mandy talk a number of times on different podcasts about being who you are and understanding yourself. And today, as she talks about with Lainey on Evolving with Gratitude, she talks about resilience and emotional engagement and balancing areas of self-care. And, so emotional engagement is how engaged we are in whatever we're doing with our emotions. And we are more engaged if our emotions are connected to that marketing term. She talks about resilience and how we need to have a way to reset ourselves in times of stress so that we can carry on. Having those little moments of reset. I thought that was curious how you talked about that, Mandy. For me, myself, one thing that's really important for me is my church community. I go to a church here just down the hill from where I'm walking right now. And being part of my church community and my friends and, connecting with them. Men's group's really important. Hang on, I got more to say. One more thing for January 30th, 2024. Carrying on my thoughts about episode 87 of Evolving with Gratitude as Lainey Rowell talks with Mandy Freilich. I was saying about, resilience and about how we should have, and Mandy talked about this, how we need to have a way of resetting ourselves in a moment so that we can carry on. Resilience isn't about just going and going. It is about having a going, and then pause, reset ourselves so we can go back to it. It's not about running away from those emotions. It is about working through something, maybe stuffing those emotions down, having a pause, dealing with it for a moment, and then carrying back on. You got to listen to what she says because she's does a way better job than what I did just there, but it's clicking for me. How do we stop and be able to, reset ourselves so we can go on? You talked about crying and about sadness and about emotion and snot, and it's important that we get those things out. In our society today, it's not cool to cry in public. No. But that's one of the things that I do. I don't just sit there and blubber, but when the time is necessary, I let it out because it's healthy for me. We were talking last night at my men's Bible study about a book by Skye Jitani, who's a speaker. He's a pastor. He teaches the Bible, and this book is called "What If Jesus Was Serious?" And so, for me, this is part of my spiritual well-being and spiritual self-care, about being engaged in my spiritual health. And we were talking about this book, and one of the little chapters in the book was if Jesus was serious, we should be allowed to cry in church, and how we have such a positive thinking and, smiley, happy, clappy people church, that there's no place in churches for people to cry. And I think it's super important that we be honest with ourselves, because God made us fully spiritual in all things. And so, yes, crying is important. Okay, I gotta go. Talk to you soon. Okay, bye. The last saying for January 30th, 2024. I'm walking and I'm on the home stretch. I listened to episode 173 of Tech Tools for Teachers with Shanna Martin and Fuzz Martin. And as I was walking and listening, they talked today about coding in the classroom and how we can code. And she provides us with a couple of spaces to do so. One is Codemoji, and it sounds like a full-fledged kind of integrated site where you can sign up accounts, have a way for, classroom activities, etc. like that. And kids can see what they're coding and see the results of it. It reminds me a bit of Scratch. So maybe it's like that, but a little bit more learning management system-ish there. So there's that. Then she brings us a bonus section where she talks about microbits as these little codable kind of mini Raspberry Pi things, but you don't need to buy them to learn to code with these microbits because their site has virtual microbits. So it's a way for you to get in, have the kids do some learning and see the product that they're working on. And if you feel inclined, go spend the money to buy the microbits. But yeah, you don't have to. So that's it for episode 173, Tech Tools for Teachers. Thanks, Shanna. Thanks, Fuzz. Hey, I enjoyed listening to your show. It's fun. Shanna, I'm going to send you a direct message because I have an opportunity for you to maybe speak into British Columbia a little bit. All right. Thanks all. Talk to you soon. Okay. Bye. Hey, PLN, happy February 1, 2024. First day of February. We are through January, our exam time, report cards, and we're heading into the quieter month, sort of, as we get going on a second semester. Students are in new courses. And yes, so here we are. All right, this morning as I'm walking, it is 11 degrees Celsius. No, actually, it's only 8 degrees. It's cooler than it has been. We've had some pretty warm weather this week. We are at overcast, and it's about on the verge of raining. So I got to hustle home before I get soaked. I listened to episode 265 of My EdTech Life with my friend Fonz Mendoza. He talks with Dr. Kip Glazer, who is the principal of Mountain View High School in Mountain View, California, where Google headquarters is. And she talks about the interaction of artificial intelligence in her school space and about facing it and talking about it right away and not being afraid of it. So we have to balance the risks and the benefits all the time as we look at new technology. And how do we do that? She talks about it from an administrator's point of view, that we need to do our part as teachers to bring what we know to what we do. The gap between knowing and doing can get good and great as we learn a lot of things, but then we're hesitant to try and do things with our students. Good pedagogy has to do with understanding our students and what they need, as opposed to just rushing headfirst into some technology and exposing them to this technology that has, maybe not their best interests in mind. Are we doing tech for tech's sake, or for tech for, expressing learning and for students to learn about tools and understanding that tools are tools? All right, Fonz and Kip, thank you so much. Appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate hearing from you, and have a fabulous day. Hey, PLN, February 2nd, 2024. Happy Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day. I wonder if Pugsatawny Phil's going to see a shadow. Doesn't feel like it because it's so warm right now. It's crazy warm. We've got really warm. I was out in a t-shirt on the weekend and didn't realize I was out in a t-shirt on the weekend. That's how warm it was. It was like 17 degrees Celsius, and the evening, the wind was blowing out of the south and melting all the snow we got, a week before. And so that's all gone now. Yes. So this morning as I'm walking, I listened to the Digital Learning Podcast with Holly Clark and Matt Miller. And thank you for your podcast. It's informative and helpful. And if you need some, this is like really current looking stuff as they talk about digital literacy and AI and all the things that are going on right now. So they talked this morning on episode 43 about how AI image generators can lock students into learning. And it's an accessible way of using text to image in our AI tools to show students the capacity and the power of getting novel, creative images out of our AI text image generators. We got Firefly, we've got Canva Magic Tools, we've got Dolly and Midjourney and other tools like that you can type in some words, get an image back. When Firefly first came out, I was like, whoa, I gotta get on this. And I got a subscription, but my students weren't able to touch it. So I sat in class and I had them give me some prompts. And they were like, no, look at that. Can you make this for me? And I did. And then I shared the image and they're like, oh, that's so cool. And they put it into a greeting card, for their mom for Mother's Day. And we did that back before Adobe Express had incorporated Firefly into its tool. So yes, I'm going to come right back. I got more to say. So hang on just 1 second. One more thing for February 2nd, 2024. Continuing my thoughts on episode 43 of Digital Learning Podcast with Holly Clark and Matt Miller on image generating. So I was talking about how, I used Adobe Firefly when I had a subscription in beta, and then it came into Adobe Express and it's sitting right there. It's sitting right there. My students are using Express. My students are Express wizards. I've taught them for years about this, and now we have this tool sitting right there. So we started playing with the tool, and they were just crazy blown away about what we could do. How can AI with text to image do what it does? Before that, blew our minds was, background removal. You had to use remove BG. You had to be like Photoshop smart before to be able to take the background out. But now with our AI sitting right there, it does the work for us to remove the background, and it's getting better and better in these tools. So my students are creating digital artifacts that are creative, pictures of them with the background removed, and you take and then put a text to image, generated picture behind it. Our snowman building project this year, I had the students all create a backdrop in the style that Claudio Zavella Jr. talked about as he was talking about Adobe Express text to image and in his YouTube videos, and make a backdrop. And then to even further that a little bit more, to put the stakes up a little bit more, I had them use somebody else's backdrop in their final product so that we were like collaborating on how can we make a cool thing, and then, others use that. So yes, I think the power of having a visual response quickly is so important to our understanding of what are the capabilities of this tool. Because of the watermark in Adobe Firefly, I like that. But that's not there in Adobe Express. So I made a sticker, and then I distributed that sticker like a little badge. And then I said, students, you have to put this on your picture so we know where it came from. All right, by the way, and I appreciate you guys. Thanks, bye. The last thing for February 2, 2024. I just listened to episode 20 of season 4 of Teach Happier, as Suzanne Daly prompts us to consider the delight in the detour. You're driving down the road and you got the detour sign and you got to turn right instead of going straight, and it takes you extra time. That's not the kind of detour she's talking about. She's talking about the kind in our spaces in our lives that take us in directions that we are not expecting. That's like a detour, a road detour for sure, but it is more about, things that happen in our lives as opposed to traffic issues. She tells a story about having to go pick up her daughter and friend, and 2 other friends jump in on the way and have to drive around, and the fun that was had and the joy that came out of those interactions that wouldn't have happened had not the first son's friend called and said, hey, can you pick me up? Or the son. Yeah. So anyhow, it's about how we view these changes. What do we do with them? Do we get flustered? Do we go, this isn't what I was planning on right now? This is not what I was planning. As a teacher, we face these kinds of distractions on a regular basis. And what do we do with them? Do we push them off and say, no, close my door, I have work to do, and I can't talk to you? Or do we go, yeah, what's going on, and see where that goes? This is a part of the collaborative nature of teaching that my colleague walks into my room when I'm doing marking and says, hey, check this out. And it's just crazy how these little detours can take us in directions because we are open to seeing the joy in those moments. So see the joy. I always say that I love change until it happens to me. We had, change from Google to Microsoft, and I got some good news for you. I'm digging Microsoft now. Hey, Bruce. Hi, Sophie. Bye, guys. Bye-bye. That's Bruce and Sophie. All right, so all the change, and how do we handle those things? What do we do with that? I'm making our newsletter right now on Microsoft PowerPoint. It's not a desktop software, but it's working for me. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and appreciate you listening to episode 156 of Fresh Air at 5. I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.